All right, so let's talk about the Fall 1 changes for this year. Some key dates first. Census Day this year falls on October 1st, which is the first Wednesday in October. Again, we have that zero fatal errors milestone date of November 21st. And this is really to give you some time after you've cleaned up all of your validation errors before the submission deadline to thoroughly review your certification reports and for your data stewards and other folks that have knowledge of these reports for them to thoroughly review them and then provide feedback for you in case you need to make any additional updates before the submission deadline of December 12th. And we also have around this milestone date, the Thanksgiving holiday. So it's really important that you do try your best to get your fatals down to zero, right? And then there's an amendment deadline of January 23rd. So you have roughly about a month or so, considering the holidays at the end of the year. This is the time where you can go in and polish up your data and make minor adjustments to your data before you do a final LEA and SELPA approval on or before January 23rd, right? But please do not leave the bulk of your data submission and data cleanup for the amendment window. And we do have a CalPADS calendar page that you can visit in case there are any changes to these dates. So we always start with the code set changes, and this year we do have some new code sets and some that have been retired or modified. The course group state codes that are new this year, there are three of them. This is not related to Fall 1, but I put it in here because some of you may be working on Fall 2 parallel to Fall 1. So it's good for you to know what has changed for Fall 2 in terms of code sets. So there are three new state course codes that will be coming your way for Fall 2. And these are the ones that are listed here. In addition to that, we also have three new language codes. And there are a number of changes related to special ed codes and various data elements. So these special ed changes, most of them are because the department gets feedback from SELPAs and special ed folks throughout the year for improvements on the various reports and data collection practices. So as a result of that, they start adding new codes or modify existing codes and definitions, and some of the old codes may get retired, and that's what's happening here. So we do have two new meeting delay codes for special ed. These are codes 15 and 25, as well as one special education service location codes now, which is code 205. And there are a number of referring party codes that are listed here for special ed. As far as our retired codes, Education Program Code 135, Title I Part C migrant, as I explained earlier, because Title I Part C migrant information is now pushed to CalPADS through a matching that happens on a weekly basis. And so as a result, LEAs will no longer be submitting the program code 135. Special Education Service Code of 350 was also retired, and three Special Education Service Location codes were retired as well. So there were some code names and definitions that were modified. Specifically, there are some language codes that are listed in here, as well as the Special Education Service Location Code 640 for county community school. And then we have a list of other codes that their definitions were updated, right? There are so many that we cannot go over all of these changes in this session. But what I do want to pose as a question for you is, which reference document would you refer to find out the details of these code value names and definition changes? Yeah, so it is a code sets document. You're right, Nate. And I strongly recommend that this is one of the reference documents. There are a few more that I'm going to mention throughout this training, that you download the latest versions, because that's where you will find the latest information related to code sets and the data element changes, etc., right? So this is the code sets document, as Nate mentioned. In the revision history, this is where I actually find the high-level changes for the code sets. So if you look here, the first thing I do is every year at the beginning of the academic year, they do a rollover of this document with the new changes for that year. So that's what I do. I filter by the latest version, right? And then in this case, I did a filter by date instead of version. So I looked at July of 2025, right? Which will contain the latest information. And after that, you can look at the code set names here. From there, you can identify which ones are related to Fall 1 and Fall 2 and other submissions, right? So right from the bat, course group state course code changes, we know is collected for Fall 2. So there are a few of them, but the rest, if we look, are mostly related to Fall 1. It provides the code set name in here for you, as well as the actual code values that had the change and their respective names. And also in the summary of changes column on the right, it provides us to what changed about that code value, right? It was either added as a new code or the definition was updated, or both the name and the definition was updated, or the code was retired in some instances, like this one. So this is a good place to start. And then if you want to look at the details of it, you would go to the CalPADS code sets, find the appropriate code set in the code set name column, and then find the code value, or you can do a search for it, right? If you want to quickly find it. So I strongly recommend that you download this document. Very useful along with our other reference documents. That's all I'm going to say about code sets. In terms of extracts, we talked about the migrant information. So this year, again, your migrant statuses will be coming directly from CalPADS to you in the form of an extract. So we refer to this extract as Migrant Eligible Program Students, or MEPS extract, and it has been available as of July 2025. It will be updated again on a weekly basis with new migrant students. LEAs should download this extract and then upload it into their student information system, as this is going to be your authoritative source for students' migrant statuses. So again, in the notes of this slide, we have a link to the user manual page with detailed information and Flash 308. For the plan file type, this year, you will see two new data elements, which are data element 23.34, Part C to Part B transition conference date, and Part C to Part B transition plan in IFSP indicator. Through these two fields, the department will be collecting data for Part C state performance plan or / annual performance report, right? Which is the SPP/APR indicators 8A and 8C. So for Part C students served by county offices or LEAs, Department of Development Services did not collect data for the indicators 8A or 8C previously. And so therefore, it was proposed to add these data elements to collect that information. And there is some additional background information about this in the notes. I strongly encourage you to review that offline in a PowerPoint presentation so you have a good understanding of this. And also, I should mention that as we're going through changes related to special education, your SPED coordinator may not be watching this presentation or attending these live sessions. We strongly recommend that you share this information with them, because you want to make sure that they're updated on the latest changes this year, because they will be handling this data and submitting this data to CalPADS, and you don't want them to get caught in a surprise when they're submitting data and new validations starts triggering, etc. So it's really important that you share the PowerPoint presentation with them and also point them to the recordings of this training. In addition to the new data elements in the plan file type, there's also data element 23.16. This is an existing data element that was modified. Basically, the name of the field was changed from disability 1 degree of support to disability degree of support. For the student program record, data element 3.2, which is the migrant student ID, that field is no longer needed because, again, the migrant information is collected differently now. And as always, we keep the user manual up to date with the latest changes. And we do have the Fall 1 primer or roadmap, and the link is provided here that you can access. And it provides great information. It's sort of like a one-stop shop with all pertinent data to Fall 1. You have the calendar, milestone dates in there. You have the checklist. You have all the changes related to Fall 1 for this year and all the reference and training links and whatnot. So it's a great resource, and I strongly encourage you to bookmark that webpage if you haven't, and also share it with any new users you may have in your LEA. I believe that they will find it very beneficial. So I had another quiz question. Which documents provide detailed definitions and validation criteria for the new data elements that we talked about? And it is the CALPADS file specifications. That's where you'll find the detailed definition of these new data elements. And it also provides additional notes that are really helpful and the validation criteria and conditions for these new data elements. Now, I want to talk a little bit about IVRs, CVRs, data discrepancy error changes. So this year, there are several new data discrepancy errors, as well as the one validation error. And the first one that is listed here, SCNR 03117, is for student enrollment records that have not been exited in the previous academic year. This error message, you see it in all the various submissions in CalPADS, and you will see it for Fall 1 as well this year. And this is actually a conversion of old certification error to this validation error. But it is really important that all of your students have been exited at the end of the previous academic year and they have a new enrollment record this year. SCNR 0453F1. This validation basically ensures that if any parent guardian 1 field is populated, such as a first name or a last name or highest education level, then all 3 of these fields are populated for parent guardian 1. We saw this for end of year. Now they have implemented it for Fall 1. SCNR 0635F1. This is related to the parent guardian 2 fields. Anytime you have a first name populated, the last name is also required, or vice versa, right? Or you can leave both of them blank, and that's okay. And that's what this validation ensures that you do. SCNR 0719F1, invalid student age. There used to be a SCNR 0012 validation a couple of years ago, and they found out that this validation was one of the worst system resource offenders. It would slow down the system because the logic was just not fine-tuned. It was decided that the SCNR 0012 would be deactivated, and instead you would see a new validation for EOI3, which we saw in the past submission, and a new one for Fall, which is this here. SCNR 716F1, this is another validation that triggers when the student ethnicity missing indicator is not accurately reflected in the student Hispanic ethnicity indicator. So SCNR 0716 and SCNR 0717. These validations were part of the CERT 004, if you recall, right, for missing race ethnicity. That validation was too vague and very broad. So what they did was, starting with this past end of year, if you recall, they split it into 3 separate validations. And so they have implemented that for Fall as well. Well, it was implemented partially last year, but this year they implemented the 2 missing validations. So these 3 validations now check to make sure that your race and ethnicity is populated correctly, and also that you have an SINF record overlapping census day. So SCNR 0650F1, invalid special education status code for enrolled student. This was implemented for end of year 4 in the past academic year. Now they're implementing it for Fall 1 as well. And this is basically to ensure that the correct status combinations are reported. All right, so moving forward, we do have a number of new special ed validations for this fall. You can read through them, and we have information about them in the notes of the PowerPoint presentation with a lot of background. But the most important thing here is that you communicate these new validations with your special ed coordinators to make sure that they have a good understanding of them, and there are various tools and reference documents that are available to help you decipher what some of these validations are and why they're triggering, right? All right, so here are some additional data discrepancy errors that have changed this year, starting with the SENR 0269F1. Student grade levels outside the designated grade span for the school. The severity of this error has been changed from a warning to a fatal this year, and it also will exclude certain school types such as COEs and districts, NPS, NPA, or any school without a low or high grade offered in those entities. So that's some of the backend changes that you will see, but more importantly, that this is a fatal error. So while last year you could bypass it, this year you will be forced to fix this. SCNR 0606F1, missing plan record for enrolled, eligible, and participating student with disabilities. This error was modified to exclude exit reason N470 from it. The rest of it stays the same. SCNR 0644, language instruction program record missing for English learners. This validation was modified to exclude grade level AD from the validation logic. And SCNR 0646F1. Students enrolled at NPS schools must now have eligible and participating record. We saw this being implemented for end of year 4 this past year, and it will also exclude the N470 exit reason. SCNR 0661F1. So this is one of the 3 validations that replaced that CERT 004. And this was implemented last year, but this year they updated the error short name, the description, and the trigger logic to make it align more with the end of year version that we saw in this past year. And then we have a number of plan data discrepancy errors, plan 0390 through 097. All of these validations were changed where the age is now calculated based on June 30th rather than census date. So this happened for this past end of year submissions. And again, they're carrying that through for fall 1 as well. The purpose of this was an attempt to give users a warning earlier on in the year about any age discrepancies that may exist. And Plan 0679F1, missing services record for a plan. The severity of this was changed from a warning to a fatal. So now if a plan record exists for a student, there must be at least one service record associated to that plan. Those were the validations that were modified, and we have the CERT 004 certification error, which has been retired. At any point, if you need more information about these validations, you may refer to the error list document. And also, anytime you come across any of these validations in the CALPADS UI, you can click on the error code itself, and it will take you to a web page that provides all that detailed information that you find in the error list document, along with additional data. There may be links to videos that we have created with detailed background or links to flashes, etc., that provides more information to help you resolve these errors. All right, so moving forward with the reports changes, we have a few new real-time reports now that you will see in CalPads, and these are supplemental reports that are available for LEAs. And again, I apologize, we don't have the report numbers for a few of them, but they will become available. And again, an updated PowerPoint presentation will have that information for you later on by the time you're watching this recording. So there's a new report for students with disabilities count by the federal setting, and a supporting report for that by DSEA, students with disabilities student profile, which gives you a breakdown of it. This first report is needed by DSEA to assist LEAs in calculating indicator 5, which is school age, least restrictive environment, or LRE, and indicator 6, which is preschool age, LRE. And the student profile report is used to assist LEAs in validating data for indicator 5, school age, LRE, and indicator 6, preschool age, LRE, and indicator 9, which is disproportionality by race ethnicity, and indicator 10, which is disproportionality by race ethnicity and disability. In addition to that, there are a couple of supplemental LEA-CA reports, Report 5.10 and 5.11, and these are related to Title I Part C migrant counts and the student list. I've been told that there's a possibility these two reports will become available this year, a little bit later on in the submission window, but if not, definitely by the next academic year. And so I've left it here just in case it does become available this year. There were some additional reports that were modified, specifically report 1.17, which is your LCFF report, and the supporting LCFF report 1.18, 19, and 20, as well as CA report 1.17. The LCFF age eligibility logic for these reports will now include 4-year-old kindergarten students born before September 1st, 2025. So we have seen this change over the past few years. Every year they keep changing this date. And also report 1.17, total enrollment column will have the age limitation. So the total enrollment column will be limited by age eligibility, similar to the LCFF age eligibility counts, to exclude TK and KN students whose 5th birthday is after September 1st, 2025. And then reports 1.1, CA 1.1, 1.17, and CA 1.17, prior data and difference data added for Fall 1. So we have a couple of comparison columns, right? One is new this year, and one of them, they reused an existing column on these reports. The new column will be labeled prior academic year informational only. This would have the total graduates and completer counts from prior year certified EOY3 submission, and then the existing column will be labeled selected academic year, and it will have the total graduates and completers for this academic year. So these columns existed for end of year 3 submission, and there was a request that this should also be applied to these reports for Fall 1. And reports 1.17 and 1.18, the column label has changed from migrant 135 because that code has been retired. And now it will say Title I Part C migrant. And then the backend aggregation logic for the report for that column has been changed to pull the data from a different source. There are some additional real-time reports changes. Report 16.21, both the LEA and CELPA reports will have a new filter enrolled on recent census date with a yes/no flag, and the default flag will be all. And it will also have 3 new columns: date of last plan review, date of last reevaluation, date of initial Part B evaluation, and a modified column calculation for days elapsed since late. So those are some of the changes you will see for report 16.21. For report 16.12, the LEA and CELPA level reports, one of the columns was renamed from emotional disturbance to emotional disability for the disability category code. And this was due to the data element change that we saw earlier as well. And we have some report logic modifications for report 16.13. So we have gone through these report changes. Now is quiz time again. Which analysis tool would you utilize to help you with a better understanding of the aggregation logic on these reports and identifying discrepancies? Good job. Yes. So it is the reports mapping tool. We have these reports mappings, and you can access them through the user manual. So this is the CALPADS user manual. You can access the mapping guides from functionality map, or you can do a search for it, but you would go to reports and look at certification, real-time reports. And if you go to the Fall 1 section, you will see the mappings for all of these Fall 1 reports, both the aggregate reports as well as supporting reports. And any of them that you click on, it provides a background as to how the system derives to the accounts, what criteria, conditions it uses for the aggregation. And each report column has a number on them, and you can read through each of the column numbers and figure out how the system derived to the counts in that specific column, what data was used, what data range was used, all of that good information, right? So this is a great tool that you can use. And also you can share this link with any of the folks that would be reviewing these reports. If they are interested in finding out how the system derived to a certain aggregate count on a report, it would greatly benefit folks. Closing that. All right. So those were all of our changes for this year. As far as the LEA approval requirements, there are some conditions that have to be met first before you can LEA approve your data. First, you need to make sure that you have zero fatal errors in terms of your data discrepancies and certification errors. And also, you need to ensure that your anomalies percentage is at 2% or below 2%. And lastly, you want to make sure all your aggregate reports have been reviewed and they all have the green check marks next to them. Then you should be able to LEA approve your Fall 1 submission. And these are the various aggregate reports or certification reports that you need to approve for Fall 1. And again, you want to send these reports out to your data stewards so they have time and review them thoroughly before you LEA approve. Okay, so this slide summarizes the whole process for the Fall 1 submission. You want to start with submitting your data, and you LEA approve your various certification reports, and then the CELPAs will have an opportunity to look at the CELPA reports, and they will do the final CELPA approval. And once they have completed that task, your data will be considered certified for Fall 1.